Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chapter 3, Risk Tolerance. Elizabeth Inman has joined me again. Elizabeth, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I so appreciate it.
Well, we have some great topics that are coming up. You know, we had a great session that if you in the audience have not listened to it, we suggest you go back to our podcast channels to pick it up. And today, Chapter 3, Part 1, is risk tolerance. So let's talk about risk tolerance. A very important subject in the year 2020.
Well, that's for sure, Jeff. You know, we just came off of 11 years of a great market increase. Talk about changes in retirement, like what we talked about in our last podcast. Retiring 5 years ago looks so different than if you've planned to retire in 2020 after what happened in the market in March of this year. So retirement today is very different. So, you know, when we talk about risk tolerance, what is your risk tolerance, you know, and what affects it? Things like we're actually living longer today. People live 10 years longer on average than people did in the 60s. That can make a difference in our risk tolerance. The cost of long-term care. You know, right now today in America, the median cost of a nursing home room is $7,698 a month. You think that impacts how much risk you can tolerate once you've retired? And then don't even get me started about the unsteady stock market and what's just happened to folks just in the last 6 months when it comes to the markets. You know, and then how do we predict what the market's going to look like in 5 years into retirement, 10 years into retirement? You know, it's a different ball game today than what it used to be, and it all affects our risk tolerance.
Right. So what then truly is the definition of quote unquote risk tolerance?
Well, you know, Jeff, you really can't buy peace of mind. There just isn't enough money to buy peace of mind. So understanding risk tolerance, what the definition is, how it impacts us is very important. It's real simple. Risk tolerance is simply how much risk you're able to withstand. So your risk tolerance while you're working may be very different than the risk tolerance you have right before you retire, and certainly different than after you've retired. What we hope to do is increase your understanding of the amount of risk you're under right now today. What kind of risk is on your funds today that's going to impact your retirement? How much risk are you even willing to tolerate? Do you know your own philosophy towards risk? You know, when I ask people that question, you know, what's your philosophy today when it comes to risk tolerance? And what's your philosophy after you retire towards risk tolerance? They really don't even understand those terms because those aren't terms that most federal employees hear about as they progress through their career, but it's something that's going to very, very much impact them. And how much do you need to retire successfully? Definitely risk involved in that will make a difference on whether you even have enough money to retire and retire under what you would call a successful retirement. And then once you understand risk, it enables you to take the action that's necessary. Where are your funds today? How do you have it invested? What's the difference in the L funds versus the L50, 2050 fund? What's the difference in the C fund, the S fund, the I fund? And then what's Congress trying to do to our G fund? I mean, there's legislature out there pending today that is greatly geared towards impacting whether or not there will be a G fund in the near future, and what the ceiling may be on any earnings in that G fund. So understanding those differences are extremely important, and all of that rolls up into your philosophy towards risk tolerance. You know, I actually had somebody in my office that came in, Jeff, on March the 19th of this year. It was on a Thursday. And they were really just there for retirement counseling. They had heard about the 5 dangers of federal retirement, and they wanted to have that conversation, which we did. And after we finished, they were getting ready to head out. And I just said, hey, you know what, there's some shifting happening in the markets right now. How are you with your TSP? And their immediate response back was, oh, I'm good. It's made me a lot of money recently. I'm good. Well, our very next appointment was the following Tuesday, March the 24th. And when they sat down in their chair and looked up at me, they'd informed me they'd lost $96,000. From Tuesday
Ooh.
to the prior Thursday, their TSP account had gone down $96,000. You think that they weren't impacted by risk when it come time to retire, because they retired March the 31st of this year, just a few days later. What they wouldn't have given to understand risk tolerance much better prior to their date of retirement.
Wow. So for those listening and interviewing the session today, how, I didn't even put myself in this category. How does someone even start that process of even determining their risk tolerance? I mean, where do you even start?
That's a great question, Jeff. It's a question that I wish I'd known way before I retired, because I myself lost 78,000 2 years before I retired. There's a couple of different methods. And, when we get back together on our podcast next time, we're going to continue this conversation about risk tolerance, and we're going to look at least two different methods to determine our risk. The first one's called the Rule of 100. It's been around for a very, very long time. We'll talk about that. And then I really want to spend some in-depth time talking about the color of money risk analysis that's available to everybody that's listening. They can go to my website at www.retirechoices.com and go to the color of money risk analysis. Answer 11 questions, and then a number is going to be spit out. It's going to start the conversation when we can sit down and really talk about your philosophy towards risk tolerance in your career and in your retirement. So that'll be on the agenda for next time, Jeff.
Great. You have walked me through the color of money risk analysis, and I think everybody out there should take that test. I really think you should do that. So we're going to get into more details on the next episode. It'll be part 2 of chapter 3, risk tolerance, with Elizabeth. Great information as usual, Elizabeth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. I sure enjoyed my time with you today.
Okay, everybody. If you have questions for Elizabeth, you can call us on the 800 number, 888-545-8840. You can also check out the previous podcast sessions on fedchecklist.com, fedchecklist.com, or you can email us at info@govresource.com. As we close out, Elizabeth, one more time on your website.
www.retirechoices.com.
Okay. Look for the next episode, Risk Tolerance Part 2. We're going to get into the Rule of 100 and the color of money risk analysis. That will be uploaded shortly, and this concludes our session today. Thank you, everybody.